Hey, what is up, ladies and gentlemen? I'm Piglet here once again, and look at that cute little dinosaur right here. Just stares around all over the place. Well, not so much walking around, but just stares at pretty much a just a boneless bone. But I digress. But even then, I'm pretty sure he did eat the most of his meats at the moment. But even then, though, that's saying much. So anyways though, I'm from the likes of the Maxi Toys videos of course, and ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to more Let's Play of Kirby's Epic Yarn for the Nintendo Wii. So last time we actually did manage to tackle through those 3 levels in Heartland, which are Pyramid Sands, Lava Landing, and Cool Cave. In addition to that though, we also managed to tackle one of those Zeke's hide and seek challenges. And today for this episode is the fact that we're going to be hopefully finishing up with the forms of Heartland to take on the forms of Dino Jungle. Not to be confused as the forms of Dino Jungle from the likes of both Mario Kart Double Dash and Mario Kart 7 in the forms of the, I would say Lightning Cup from the forms of Mario Kart 7's rendition of that particular track. But I'm pretty sure that might be something worth mentioning. So, this level is very fun though, especially noticeable. We're going to be able to actually just have a little bit of a thrill fun ride with the forms of every single dinosaurs around here. In addition to those little Triceratops, or in this case, just pretty much every single like dinosaur species all over across the actual level. So, yeah, this sounds very convincing right there. So today was actually forms of the 5th of September 2018, so again, not much else to talk for this point to be honest, other than that I'm pretty sure I can able to actually just classify for able to actually just keep on uploading schedules of the forms of Kirby's Epic Yarn for the majority of the month, because the thing is about the other current Let's Plays we're still currently are doing, well, those particular Let's Plays, well, there are a few exceptions, being the forms of course, Knuckles has barely got started by the forms of Pac-Man Party, and Mario still needs to get back into Super Mario Odyssey, and especially noticeable with the forms of well, myself included, to able to actually go back into the forms of the redo Let's Play of Captain Toad Treasure Tracker until that game is practically almost until when it gets to finishing at this point in time. And aside from that though, other than the other playthroughs at this point might be get a bit of a big delay because of the well, we're going to discuss more into that details as soon as that little particular update we're about to be going for this point, because we're not gonna spoil for the actual things itself just yet. But even then though, aside from that though, we could expecting that we could potentially try to able to actually just to see of what the actual things itself is going to happen. So, that I digress. So we got these Waddle Doos meets once again, ever since during the likes of these previous levels ago. I'm presuming that last time we actually did manage to solve those Waddle Doos, which actually, to be quite frank, this might actually be the first introduction into the forms of those Waddle Doos actually, and they behave exactly like how it does in the forms of any other Kirby games. They did manage to able to use the beam ability, and as a result, if you get hit by the beam, well, you lose some of your bees, which is not good. So even then though, that makes it very obvious there. So, of course, we got those enemies makes a return ever since in the likes of Mole Hole. But except this time around though, they appeared in the forms of the jungle environment, which even then though, since this is in a jungle environment, well, that could mean how the fact of the matter is though, is that fire will able to actually damage the whole nature, which we're not gonna let that happen, so that I digress. If we go all the way to the right side, in fact, let's be very, very cautious with that snail attack, as you can see there. And it's very easy to dodge, though, if you manage to know what his pattern is. But if you manage to go onto the right side of this particular screen, as you can see there, this means you get yourselves a star bead, in addition to those, more beads, as a result for that addition as well. So, everything else is all accounted for, basically, for this level, though. And then down here we got ourselves the final treasure in the forms of, actually this is the second treasure, sorry, but in forms of the theme of the Dino Jungle. So that's pretty much it. Other than that, we'll collect more of those beads along the way, so even then though that's, you know, self-explanatory for the most part though. So anyways, let's grab these beads from here, and I think that's about it for now on though anyway. And we can able to reflect the actual projectile right at the forms of that Waddle Dee, by the way, in case we really don't want to get hit by the actual projectiles like this. And there's the final piece of the actual ending wheel, and hopefully everything else will be all in check all together. And before we leave the level, anyway, is the fact that we actually come across into the forms of that exclamation mark point, and that way we should able to guide us to the forms of, I would say, a dino egg. And then once that's been leads us to there, then we get ourselves the final treasure, which we have the dino slide, which I'm pretty sure that in the American version of this particular treasure, it actually said something else. In fact, let me just research onto that just the point right about now. In fact, we're almost nearly towards the end, actually, because even then, after that particular last dinosaur that we can hop onto, well, the end of the level is just right there. Oh, please be able to actually get ourselves the luckiest reward this time. Please, please. Oh, screw you. There is no way I can able to actually get more of those beads every nowadays, especially noticeable in some of those gold games like this. But oh well. But at least I've got a plethora of the forms of beads all by itself. So even then though, we're still guaranteed we can able to actually get ourselves a gold medal and pretty much everything else for that entirely. So that, anyway, now we've got ourselves the pepper patch. And that way we could able to actually activate something for something related to a volcano environment syndrome. So anyways, now let's place the pepper patch right onto that spot here, and we should able to actually just let the actual volcano erupt, and that way we should able to actually lead us to the forms of, well, the actual next boss in the game. And yeah, I was right about the forms of the Dino Slide. Didn't manage to change its name on the American version. It was actually known as Prompto Slide. So that makes a little bit of a differences when it comes to regional differences here and there. So as to expect it. So here we go into the second boss in the game in Kirby's Epic Yarn, Hot Wings. Not to be confused as the forms of Rio in 2011 movie, which is entirely based on from the exact same name of the song. But except the fact that Hot Wings wasn't exactly that intimidating as far as the actual film is concerned. So even then, to me more accurately, Hot Wings is essentially a fiery bird. And basically all we have to do in this boss fight is very simple. Basically we need to able to reflect the projectile right back at him, just like before. And you can able to actually just grab its weak spots, and that way you should deal the damage. But be very careful, by the way, especially with these lava environments comes into play. And especially with these unpredictable patterns, I will admit though right away, because I always keep on getting hit by the forms of these, well, to be more accurately, by the forms of these well-timing patterns right there. You can definitely tell how the fact that most of these bosses later on can get aggressively difficult, especially noticeable how the fact that they're now going to be added in a lot more new attacks as far as they actually introduce. And basically in order to actually deal with this Hot Wings bird is the fact that we need to able to just, you know, act out like a projectile like the forms of that fireball as you see right there. And then able to reflect that back at him, and then you would able to deal the insane amount of damage, including for the likes of how the fact that you can able to actually grab his red mark onto its little thing as you can see there, and then you would able to actually deal the insane amount of damage as well. So sometimes one thing that makes this boss fight kind of tricky sometimes is the forms of dodging those meteor rocks, or even especially noticeable with the forms of fireballs themselves sometimes. But as long as you get your accuracy going with this boss fight, you should able to deal with this no problem. But if you have a first time playing for this boss fight though, you're expecting you might as well able to get hit a lot in this boss fight. But it wasn't until when we get to the third boss, or even the fourth boss for this matter, and even later on down the road, that expecting now the fact that most of the actual boss fights themselves, yeah, as you see that right there, I just accidentally got hit. Because most of these enemy patterns, as far as that's been concerned with, is a lot more narrower than I was expecting before. But in the end though, we've managed to able to kick his butt no problem, thanks to that last saved projectile that I've managed to save up for. And there we go, that concludes Hot Wings. So, and there's the third magic yarn that we can able to actually use that to restore Patchland altogether, and we can able to move along to possibly one of my favorite worlds of the entire game so far. Well, at least to me more accurately, my favorite world in the entire game, which I'm probably not going to do that in this video though, but definitely in the next video. So, as usual, we got ourselves another patch that we've got, and that was the Hourglass. But first, cutscene.
We did it! We got a piece of the magic yarn. The magic yarn shimmered and spiraled and swirled high into the sky. The yarn weaved its way into the fabric of the kingdom and stitched two pieces of patchland together. Meanwhile, back in Dreamland, the Waddle Dees were very busy inside Castle DDD. "Faster! Keep going! No lounging around!" barked King DDD. Just then, the king noticed that one of his Waddle Dees looked a little... strange. That Waddle Dee was actually one of Yin Yarn's creations. Yeah, soon Dreamland will be wrapped around my knitting needles, Yin Yarn cackled. What sort of plan was he stringing together?
Alright, so it turns out that King DDD was in this game after all, but apparently he was still at Dreamland, so even then, well, I don't know if he might actually just decide to join with us for this particular, strange world. Or in this case, in this patch land, but we'll never know until we get to the later portion of the game. But for now on though, let's go ahead and toss the actual Hourglass patch, and able to activate one of the secret levels in Hotland, and that will have to be, as soon as that door slowly opens, we'll get Temper Temple. Now, if I remember correctly, with the forms of that particular level, it's gonna be another one of those forced transformation levels. So, if that's the case, do you remember the forms of lava landing level that we come across into the forms of the fire engine Kirby? Well, that's what this transform comes in, because we need to able to extinguish all of the every single fiery hazards, including, well, the flamethrower and especially fiery-based enemies. Don't able to actually just get those beads into the lava, by the way, because, well, that'll be very, very nerve-wracking if you manage to accidentally do that. And, yeah, as far as I can see. And also, because this level is going to be, let's just say, kind of, autopilot, or in this case, quite linear at one form or another, because, well, as you can tell, we're going to be riding onto that moving platform this entire time. Well, not just for this platform, but any other platforms here and there as well, can it be act out like a rafting sequences. Which even then though, we'll get to that as soon as we're able to get to the continuation of the actual levels themselves. And here's the first treasure in this level, which is essentially the pyramid of all things. And because the reason why we need to able to deal with the forms of those flammable snakes is because some of those flame snakes usually has some treasures inside of them. So even then though, I believe there are 3 treasures to find as you expected, so even then we have to find some of those flame snakes that manage to hold the treasure itself. So, anyways though, I believe if you ever watched that particular scene, as far as I've already shown you guys about that, apparently that informs of how the fact that some of this dialogue can be alternated slightly, but it informs of how the fact that, like, you know how the fact that the UK version of the narration managed to able to say something like, go fast and all that stuff, but even then though, that in the American version they did manage to say something different. Like, take the King DDD scene for example, that how the fact that in the USA version it goes like this: let's go, hump hump, no slacking off, barked King DDD. But even then though, in the UK version they did manage to change that. See, even then though, because again, that makes the reason why the UK version managed to get the game delayed until 2011 back in the day. Because, you know, this game was first announced in the forms of E3 2010, and then, you know, you get the idea. Among the same years when The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword first announced, and especially noticeable with the forms of, like, let's just say, Mario Sports Mix, and the introduction to the Nintendo 3DS, and, you know, you get the drill. So yeah, we're gonna be doing this a lot, especially noticeable how the fact of the matter is, though, that, well, that's what I can really think about for this level. He's gonna have to, like, keep on, get rid of things. Oh, shoot. These Waterboo looking like enemies. They always are trying to feel pretty unpredictable at times, especially whenever I was trying to able to keep my beats count alive, but all of a sudden I just got a little bit nerve-wracked, and at the same time, I managed to lose some of my beats, which is not good. And, yeah, so I can tell about that. So, I digress, but even then, we will still collect some more beads along the way, so it's not that much of a, not much harder to deal with at this point. So let's just go ahead and just extinguish that particular fireball-looking enemy. I would potentially try to activate the exclamation mark item, but I'm probably not going to do that, because even then, I might as well able to fall off and just... well, again, you don't die in this game, so you're able to actually respawn to where you came from. Ah, son of a... I just really hate these Plutterboos sometimes, because they always trying to come off, like, out of nowhere sometimes. Or maybe because I wasn't paying that much attention in terms of the actual, like, hazards animations and stuff. But here we got ourselves the theme of the quality square. I think the reason why they do this is because, well, this background music plays exactly like the ones in forms of how it does it, in new forms of, let's just say, in new forms of Lava Landing. So that's why, during in some of these levels, they managed to able to give you some different musical set pieces and all that stuff with the CDs in mind. So that's why they're essentially trying to do that in most of the levels later on, and I actually accidentally missed out on that particular ending piece. So, oh well, we might as well able to accept the gold medal, and I actually realized about something. We don't have the second treasure, or in this case, the third and the final treasure. So, I think it's one of those flame snakes I've accidentally missed, and even especially noticeable, I managed to able to forget about that is usually existence. And as a result, yeah, I did actually miss that. So, in fact, yeah, I did miss that. So, that's kind of stinks. But overall, we got a candle patch, at least. So, if that's the case, then we could able to unlock the final level in the forms of Heartland. And, hopefully, we can able to actually see what's gonna be happening throughout. So, you can't enter in the levels when you, trying to keep a hold of your patch. So, I guess that makes it a little bit more sense because of how the fact that you need to see the actual, like, the animation cinematics first before you're able to actually jump into the main levels. So, ooh, somewhat of a more likely Arabian filtered. Kind of reminds me of the forms of the Aquabuff from the forms of the Aladdin, but except it's now calls it Dusk Downs. But before we get to this, however, though, I'm also able to jump cut for this point here, and I'll meet you guys whenever I get the third and final treasure for a successful attempt. And yes, truth be told, it was actually in this part right there. And as you can see, I've got my gold medal once again. And yes, it's one of those flammable snakes that I've accidentally missed, that I just essentially accidentally ignored that. And as a result, we do need to able to actually extinguish him, and if you do so, then you would able to get yourselves a camel pillow. Alright, so I've managed to finish up with that level, at least, so I managed to make you guys back into the forms of the world map itself of Heartland. So that takes care of that Temper Temple. Now let's move on to Dusk Downs. Now you remember with the forms of the motorcycle, or in this case, a motor vehicle section that we actually did manage to deal with in Pyramid Sands. Now we got to deal with it in the majority of this level, because, excuse me, the fact of the matter is, though, is the fact that you would able to actually still compete against with the forms of the most of these enemies, and we're going to be driving through by the forms of the Arabian streets, or in this case, the actual market streets, or something like that. And, yeah, that's how it usually goes, because even then though, again, just like before, if you want to able to get a crap ton of beads, be sure to aim for first place, because if you aim for yourselves first place, then you would get yourselves a crap ton of beads. And as you can see, I've got myself magic carpet right there, a reference from Aladdin. So, yeah, because, you know, there's gonna be, most of those video games nowadays, they always attempt to referencing, most of the time anyway, for Aladdin's set of items, which is kind of cool, like the forms of how the fact that, well, we got an hourglass right here. So yeah, like, first of all, we actually come across into the forms of the magic lamp, and now we actually come across into the forms of the, well, the magic carpet. And also the hourglass at the very end of the actual, like, Aladdin movie. So, anyways, and here we have the CD of the forms of Dusk Downs, which I could assume this might be something to do with, like, this background music you're gonna be hearing, and I think that's how it usually goes. So, there we go, we've once again managed to claim first place, so eat that, competitors. In fact, let me just do something, like, first of all, let's go ahead and get some more of those beats, and we can end off the level. Or before I do that, I need to be too harsh about this. Die, you! I have no idea why I just did that. Even though it's a little bit rude for my liking, but I don't care because I need some beats so badly. But in forms of more currency we can able to actually buy throughout the shops, but I'll show that off until whenever we get to that certain point. And yet again, I still have not aimed for that highest star icon, which is... I think that's what every now and then, how the fact that I always get really unlucky with the forms of some of these skill tactics like this, for instance, and then at the same time I don't claim most of those rewards while doing so. Jeez. Anyway, that's over and done with, and that pretty much does it by the forms of Heartland, so we've pretty much accomplished everything. Now, before we get into the forms of Streetland, or in this case, Streetland, one of my favorite worlds of the entire game, but again, I'm probably not going to do one right about now, up until next video, because... from now on though, we'll take on the forms of the Zeke's hide-and-seek challenges continuationing, and able to actually tackle for even more levels. So here we go with level 4 for hide-and-seek challenges. We have Pyramid Sands. Okay then. I don't know why I'm sighing like that, but even then, no, that just feels a little bit too rude for my liking, so... Anyways, let's get to it. So, once again, find all 5 of them with 3 minutes apiece, so we can expect that we can able to find these guys no problem. So, as long as you know what you're doing with the actual locations of where they are, then you would able to do with it just fine. So, I should probably explain about this actually. It's the fact that recently I've managed to able to order myself by the forms of another new item. Well, I say new, but in fact it's kind of like an old type of controller or of anything like that, and you guys should probably already know what I'm going to talk about. And I'm talking about by the forms of not so successful controller, but it is kind of cool and unique in my opinion. And that will have to be the Sega Saturn 3D control pad. What that's so unique to that controller, you might ask? Well, basically it's a combination of both the analog stick and especially notable for directional pads as well. Ah, shoot. As I was saying, oh yes, there's the last one right there, in case if you want to know. And, anyway, for the Sega Saturn 3D control pad, it's basically as a combination of both the analog stick controller and especially notable for directional D-pads, just like the ones in the forms of, this is before when, the Sega Dreamcast exists, that it usually features a directional pad, and even a joystick as a result for that too. And, yeah, but even then though, that makes it a little bit more... Well, the reason why I decided to able to purchase that controller is the fact that, well, whenever I did manage to got myself, well, granted, still got ourselves our Sega Saturn system so far, and one of those controllers that I did manage to have is not the official one. Instead, it was actually the forms of, like, let's just say a non-official one, which I'm not a big fan of, like, third-party controllers, to be honest, because it feels kind of cheap, and plus it's kind of, like, off-putting in my opinion. But even then, I personally kind of prefer the forms of the already made first-party controllers like that, because they always did that very well in terms of designs, aesthetics, and pretty much everything else for this was audible. So anyways though, here we go onto the forms of Cool Cave, and as you can see that every now and then, you know, it gets a little bit more tougher as you proceed for the majority of the levels, and as you can see, we still need to able to use that spiked ball if we want able to actually find that Zeke just into this hidden alcove, and that's all you have to do. And I don't care because, well, there's no need to able to actually just get some of the beads, but even then though, we could able to potentially grind for more of them in case if we're able to get into the main levels themselves, even especially noticeable for buying stuff. And even, well, we'll get to that in a moment later down the road, but from now on though, we've actually done with Cool Cave, and we actually unlock ourselves our next fabric, which is essentially a red tantrum fabric. Not bad all in all. And let's move on to flower fields. And yeah, as you might expect it, that's, you know, most of the levels will go a little bit more, I would say a little bit longer than the main levels, but most of those challenges, they aren't that much of a big of a deal in my opinion. Well, they're usually mandatory if you want to able to actually completely done with the entire game, but I could assume that much. So, anyways, as I was saying, by the forms of the Sega Saturn 3D control pad that I've managed to order that controller, I think I've managed to able to purchase that on eBay once again, just like in any other random items like the forms of Mario Party 2, the original cartridge-only version of that game, and Banjo-Tooie as well, and especially notable for the Donkey Kong Country trilogy on the Game Boy Advance, in addition to the Donkey Kong Land series also on the Game Boy Advance as well. And because of that though, I thought I might as well able to actually buy the official Sega Saturn controller, but with a combination of the two, basically for me. And, well, it doesn't do very well in terms of, internationally, because even then, though, originally, that, the 3D control pad was supposed to have additional, extra features and all that stuff due to the back of the actual controller, but unfortunately was never planned, because most of the critics managed to find that controller kind of awkward to use. Well, I personally don't mind the actual design. I mean, it's simple design, but it forms of the circle shape, and that's about it. And also the 6 face buttons, just like the ones in the official Sega Saturn controller, and the start button was actually there. And also the switch that allows you to able to switch between the joystick or the D-pad mode. Which even then though, some of those games from the Sega Saturn though anyway, managed to able to have some capabilities of the forms of, you know, the 3D control pads. Like for instance, Nights into Dreams for example. That game usually utilized the recommendation for that controller is the 3D control pad, because, you know, that game is in 3D. And I believe that could be the same applies for Sonic Jam, but only in Sonic World portion, because even then, that particular mode is also in 3D. And I'm pursuing also Sonic R, but only one exception to the forms of the Sonic games that will not allow you to use the 3D control pad, and that will have to be Sonic 3D Flicky's Island, because I'm assuming because that game came out on the exact same time as the Saturn version came out, or in this case the Mega Drive version or something like that, or personally because of how the fact that, well, let's just say maybe because of, I don't know what I can usually describe about that, and also, I think another one of those games you can able to use the 3D control pads, which is the forms of Croc Legend of the Gobos. I'm actually going to be picking up Croc Legend of the Gobos, although it might be a little bit, it hasn't aged well due to the actual, like, tank controls and everything, but I thought I might as well give myself the Saturn version, why not? Just because, well, I just don't know why I just say that. But I digress. So we're actually done with Dino Jungle, as you can see there, on the forms of the hide and seek challenges. And I believe that pretty much does it from now on though, but until we actually get into the later levels, then we can able to unlock even more challenges for the forms of those, you know, Zeke's hide and seek challenges, and especially notable for these next set of friends we're going to be able to come across into. In fact, we'll take a break for him for now. And let's just move on to the next floor up, into the forms of, like, let's just say, flat 201, and especially notable with the forms of 202, or, yeah, just pretty much. But first of all, let's go ahead and enter flat 201, and able to create this room. And let's just go ahead and change the layout and place those furnitures in. I believe the only furnitures you can able to actually insert it with is the forms of, like, that's not it. Let's just say both, oh, there it is. The Campbell sofa and the Rainbow Arch. So, and as soon as you found all those two items, then you were able to actually meet up with someone. So, I wonder who could it be? What an amazing look you have created for this room, Lord Kirby. Thanks, appreciate it. Wow, this room is really just wonderful. Is anyone currently living here? My name is Beedrex, and I will be a new tenderant here. Pleased to meet you. So yes, we have ourselves a Beatrix, but I'm probably not going to tackle for one of her challenges just yet though, because again, we've only just got started with the forms of one of those special challenges you might as well accept it with for this fact. But again, might as well do those and join the likes if they need later videos down the road. Well, not until in the future time though, and there's not much we can do in this particular flat because we can't able to get ourselves those remaining items for now on. So that I digress, so let's go ahead and just you know, just get back on track with the forms of our main adventure, and hopefully we might as well end things off at this one form of worth noting for. But first of all, let's just go ahead and just use the minus button. This is actually my favorite part about this, is that if you can't be bothered to walk around and just trying to get to the actual current next world you're going to be hit into, you can just simply press the minus button to be able to jump from hop to hop from the main worlds themselves, which I kind of like. But I digress though, I think I should probably end off for this video right here. So join me next time on Let's Play Kirby's Epic Yarn for the Nintendo Wii. Is the fact that we're going to be taking on the forms of the third world in the game, Treatland, aka my favorite world in the entire game. So see you guys next time. Later fellas.